Hello all and welcome back. Like I mentioned in the previous video that my mum was getting operated. So I tried doing a recording from the hospital. But it turned out to be pretty bad. It was so bad that I had to delete it. There were a lot of distractions, car honking, ambulance sirens, people talking out loud, kids running around. So it was like not worth putting it up on the channel. As far as my mum is concerned, she's back home, she's absolutely fine, she started walking. So on that front, I'm very much relaxed and now I can concentrate on the video recordings. Right, in the last video, we saw how we can write data to a worksheet using a user form. In this video, we will learn how to read that data and display it on a user form. We will cover 3 different scenarios. In the first scenario, we will show the data into a couple of text boxes and then we'll have 2 buttons, previous and next, so that we can, move from one record to the other by pressing those buttons. In the second scenario, we will show all that data into a multi-column list box. And in the third scenario, we will again show the data into the multi-column list box. But here what we will do is we will accept an input from a user. And then we will try to match the records with that input using .find and .FindNext. And then show that data in the multi-column list box. Before we begin, if you have not seen the previous video, please watch that video first. Because in that video, I've shown you how to customize the user form. I will be using those customized user forms in this video, but I will not explain how did we achieve that. So if you have not seen that video, go ahead and see that video first. So let's begin. I have some data stored in the worksheet. We will use this data to cover 3 scenarios. I also have a temp sheet, which is here. I will use this worksheet in scenario 3. Right now, I will hide this worksheet by right-clicking on it and clicking on Hide. Let's launch the Visual Basic Editor. If you're not sure what Visual Basic Editor is, then I recommend watching the video Visual Basic Editor and Introduction. We will now press the shortcut key Alt F11 to launch the Visual Basic Editor. Here, I have 3 forms ready. I will use each of them one by one. Let's handle scenario 1. Where we read the data from the worksheet and display it on a user form. This is the user form that we will use for scenario 1. Right click on it and click on View Object. Let's close this toolbox, we don't need this for the moment. I already have made some basic customizations to this user form. Like I mentioned, if you have not seen the previous video on how to enter data into a worksheet using a user form, then I recommend watching that video first. Because in that video, I've explained about how to do the basic customization in the user form. I have named this user form as FRM Display Data SCR1. SCR1 stands for Scenario 1. Let me expand this a little bit so that you can see the name. Here it is. I have also set the caption of this form as Employee Details Scenario 1. Here we have 4 labels, 1 for employee name, 1 for address, 1 for date of birth, and 1 for gender. Next to these we have 4 text boxes where we will display the data. The text boxes are named as EMP name, EMP address, EMP DOB, which stands for employee date of birth, EMP gender. We have 2 command buttons. These buttons will behave like previous and next. Previous will show you previous record and next will show you the next record. The first one is named as BTN PREV, which stands for button previous, and the other one as BTN next. Since we will show the first record when the form loads, there will not be a previous record. So we have disabled the previous button. Only when the user presses the next button, we will enable the previous button. To enable or disable button, you can use the enabled property of the command button. Now let's view the code of this user form. Right click on the user form and click on View Code. Now let me explain what this code does. This is the current row variable. This will hold the current row from where the data is being read. WS is the worksheet object. And this is where we are initializing the worksheet object. In this section, we are reading the data from the second row and displaying in the text boxes. So if you go back to the worksheet, you'll notice that I'm picking the value from row 2 because that's the first record. Let's go back. And here I am setting current row is equal to 2. So I'm setting the value of current row as 2 when the form loads. Below the UserForm initialize event, we have the button next. This procedure is executed when the user presses the next button. Here what I'm saying is whatever the current row is, incremented by 1. So if the user presses it for the first time, then the current row becomes 3. This is the last row variable. And here we are getting the last row of column A. In this line, what we are saying is if the current row is the same as last row, then disable the button next because there will not be any record after that. In this line, what we are saying is if the current row is not equal to 2, then enable the button previous. And in this section, we are picking up the value from the current row and displaying it in the text box. So if the current row now is 3, then the data will be picked up from the third row. Below that is the button previous click procedure. This procedure will get executed when the user presses the previous button. Here the reverse is happening. The current row is reduced by 1. So if the record is being shown from the fifth row, when you click on the previous button, the current row becomes 4. Here we are saying if the current row is less than 3, then disable the previous button because there won't be any more records. Here we are saying if the next button is disabled, then enable it. And here we are doing the same thing. We are retrieving the data from the current row and we are populating the text boxes. Now let's launch the user form and check if we were able to achieve what we wanted. To launch the user form, click on the Run Sub User Form button, or alternatively you can press the shortcut key F5. So let's click it. And we can see that the form loads and the first record is displayed. The previous button is disabled. Now let's press the next button. When we press the next button, two things should happen. First, the previous button should get enabled and the user form should be populated with the next record. So let's click it. And it did. Let's keep on pressing the next button till we reach the last record. See how the next button gets disabled when we reach the last record? Similarly, if you keep on pressing the previous button, when you reach the first record, the previous button gets disabled. This was scenario 1. Here we were able to display the employee details on the user form and we used 2 buttons to navigate through the records. Now let's move to scenario 2. What we will do now is we will show all the data in a multi-column list box. So I'm going to close this. This is my second form. Right click on it and click on View Object. I have named the form as FRM Display Data SCR2. I have also set the caption as Employee Details Scenario 2. Here we have a label called Employee Details and below that is a list box. The list box was added from the toolbox. So if I click on View and click on Toolbox, this is the list box. So I'm going to close this again. Before we proceed, I would like to take you through a couple of properties. The first property that I want to take you through is the column count. So click on the list box and then you can see the column count. I've used 5 here because there are 5 columns. A, B, C, D, E. These are 5 columns. The property below that is the column heads. I've left it as false. Like I mentioned, I'm going to show 2 ways to display the data in a multi-column list box. So in this example, we will keep it as false. I will talk about this property after we are done with the first way. The next property is the column width. This property returns or sets a string that specifies the width of each column in a multi-column list box. To separate column entries, use semicolons as list separators, or use the list separator specified in regional settings of your Windows control panel. I have set the width of name, date of birth and gender as 100, and for address I am using 200. Serial number is 20. Now let's check the code. So I'm going to right click on the form and I'll click on view code. You will see two pieces of code. The second code is for the second scenario. We will use that later. When the form loads, I want to see all the records. So we will use the UserForm initialize event. Now let's understand what this code does. WS is the worksheet object, RNG is the range object, LRow is for last row, and myArray is a variant. These are my 4 variables that I'm going to use. In this line, we are initializing the worksheet object. And in this line, we are trying to get the last row in column A. Once we have found the last row, we are initializing our range object. So what we are saying is our range is from A1 to E last row. And in this line, I'm trying to save the value of RNG into myArray variant. When you do this, a 2-dimensional array is created. In this line, I'm using the list property. The list property allows you to add the contents of an array to the list box. So now let's launch the user form and check if we were able to achieve what we wanted. So when you run this, you will notice that all the data is populated in the user form and you can actually scroll through it. So you can see employee name, address, date of birth, and gender. So this is a multi-column list box. If you scroll up, you will notice that we have the range headers here. But these are not actually headers because if you scroll down, these will also scroll out of view. Even if you set the column headers as true, they will remain empty. So let's test that. I'm going to close this. I will click on the list box and I will set the column heads as true. You will notice that there's a space now created for the headers. When you run this user form, you will notice that the header section is still empty and the range headers have moved down, and if you click on the scroll button, they will scroll out of view. So they are still not working as headers. So I'll close this. And hence I had set this as false because it doesn't make sense setting this as true when you are using this method. Like I mentioned, a lot of people don't know how to show proper headers on the list box. I have seen people actually use labels on top of list box to show headers. Now let's see how we can show headers in our list box. Let me quickly delete the code. And I will uncomment this code. And I will set the column heads as true. Let's understand what the code is doing. Most of it is same as what we did earlier. If you notice, I'm setting the range from row 2 and not row 1. And that is because the column headers are taken from the row above the range used for the row source. If you set it as A1 to E ampersand last row, then you will see the column name instead of the range headers. We will check this in a moment. The row source property allows you to add a range to the list box. When we use external is equal to true, it ensures that the row source will read from the sheet of the range rather than the active sheet. So let's run this. You will notice that the list box now has proper headers. Even if you scroll, the headers will not move. See? Now coming back to what I mentioned earlier. Let me close this. Let me go back to the code. If I pick the range from A1, see what happens. Column A, column B, column C, and so on. So like I mentioned, the column headers are taken from the row above the range used for the row source, and hence I used 2 instead of using 1. So this was scenario 2. Here we displayed the employee details on the user form in a multi-column list box. Now let's come to scenario 3. Here we will accept an input and then we will display only those records in the multi-column list box using .find and .FindNext. So this is the form that we are going to use. Right click on it and click on View Object. I have named this form as FRM Display Data SCR3. I've also set the caption as employee details scenario 3. Here I have a label which informs the user to enter few characters from employee name. Next to it is a text box. I have named it as TB employee name. This is where the user will type few characters from the employee name. Next to it is the button which will fetch the matching records. I have named it as TB fetch. Now let's check the code. Right click on the form and click on view code. We can use an array as I showed earlier to show the filtered data in the multi-column list box, but then we will not get proper headers. So what we are going to do here is we will use the temp worksheet that I spoke about earlier. And then we will use the range from the temp worksheet to show in the list box. Let's understand what the code is doing. These are my worksheet objects, these are my range objects, and these are my other variables. I will explain about these variables in a moment. The first thing that I'm doing here is I'm checking if the user has entered something in the employee name. Here I'm checking if the user has entered any text in the TB employee name text box. And if he hasn't, then it shows a message, enter at least one character and then try again, and it exits the procedure. If there is some text, then we are storing that in a search text variable. This is the variable that we have defined for that. Here we are initializing both our worksheets, sheet 1 and temp. And here we are setting the range as A1 to E1. Now this is the most important part. Here I am using .find and .FindNext. The range.find method finds a specific information in a range. So we are taking an input from the user and then we are using that information to search matching text on the relevant column, which is the employee name, the second column. Let's understand the syntax of .find. The syntax is expression .find what, after, look in, look at, search order, search direction, match case, match byte, search format. Expression is a variable that represents a range object. What is the data to search for? It can be a string or any Microsoft Excel data type. After, which is optional, it is the cell after which you want the search to begin. Lookin optional can be one of the following Excel find lookin constants: Excel formulas, Excel values, Excel comments, or Excel comments threaded. Lookat can be any of the following Excel lookat constants: Excel whole and Excel part. The search order can be one of the following Excel search order constants: Excel by rows or Excel by columns. Search direction can be one of the following Excel search constants, which is Excel next or Excel previous. Match case is for case sensitive search. The default value is false. The match byte is used only if you have selected or installed double byte language support. We will not cover this in this video. The search format is the search format that we can use. So, .find represents the first cell where the information is found. And if no matching info is found, then this method returns nothing. So let's go back to the code. What I'm doing here is I'm saying find in columns 2, and I want to find search text. I'm saying look in the values of those cells. Here I'm saying look at Excel part and not Excel whole. So I'm trying to do a partial match. Here I'm saying that you search by rows. Start from row 1, row 2, row 3 and so on. And here I'm saying that search ahead and not before where the current cell is. Here I'm saying make it an case insensitive search and there is no format that needs to be applied. I'm not looking for any search formats. Here I'm saying if the .find returned a range, then store that in a B cell range. The reason why I'm doing this is so that I can compare it later on and check if the search came back to that same cell. And if it did, we will stop the code. In this line, what I am doing is I'm combining this range A1 to E1, which has my headers, with the row where we found the data. And then I'm starting my loop. In this line, I'm using .FindNext. The syntax of .FindNext is expression dot FindNext after. Expression represents a range object. After, which is optional, is the cell after which you want to search. Let's go back to the code. So here what I'm doing is I'm saying find the next row which has the employee name and search after a cell. So this is a cell. This was our first search. Here I'm saying that if a cell was found, then check what is the address of that cell. Is it the same as B cell? If yes, then exit the loop. If not, then join this range with this range. So what actually is happening here is we are creating a range object which will have several rows in it, and we are using union for that. So we are joining one or more ranges. If we scroll down, here what we are doing is we are clearing the temp sheet for output. And then we are copying the range and we are pasting in the range A1 of the temp worksheet. Here we are trying to find the last row in column A of the temp worksheet. And we are saying that if the last row is less than 2, that means there are only headers and there's no data, then last row is equal to 2. The reason why we are doing this is so that we can create our range A2 to E2. And then we will use that in the ListBox row source. This is the reason why we set it as 2, so that we can get the headers. So let's now test this. I'm going to run the user form and I'm going to enter few characters. Let's say I type AR. And then if I click on fetch, and we notice that it fetched one record which matches our search criteria. If I enter one character, let's say A, and if I click on fetch, it will give you all these records because all of these employee names have got A in it. So the more characters you put, the shorter the list will be. So for example, if I type T and if I click on fetch, I will get only 6 names because these have the letter T. And if you want to find, let's say D dot, if you search, you will get these 3 names. So this was scenario 3, where we accepted an input and then we used .find and .FindNext to search for the matching records, and then we displayed only those records in the multi-column list box. Time for a quick recap. In this video, we learned how to read data from a worksheet and display it on a user form. We covered 3 different scenarios. In the first scenario, we displayed the data using a couple of text boxes and 2 command buttons. We used the command buttons to move from one record to the other. In the second scenario, we showed all that data in a multi-column list box. And in the third scenario, what we did was we accepted an input from the user, and then using .find and .FindNext, we matched the records, and whatever was matched was displayed in a multi-column list box. If you still have a question, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below, or you can also email me on support@tamexcel.com. I also have a Facebook page called Microsoft Excel-VBA. The link is in the description below, so feel free to join that. If you have any questions, post it there. If I'm online, I will reply to your question. Otherwise, there are other experts who will be more than happy to help you out. Just a quick reminder, I'll be posting 2 videos every week, one on Monday and the other on Thursday. If you want to extend support towards this channel, then go ahead and watch a couple of videos. And if you want to seriously learn Microsoft Visual Basic Programming from scratch, then see the playlist, because that is where I have arranged topics in a particular order. Watch the videos, drop a couple of likes, and if you still have not subscribed to this channel, then go ahead and subscribe to this channel by clicking on the bell icon. And I'll see you in the next video when I talk to you about how to read the data, edit the data, and then save the data back to the worksheet using user forms.